Welcome to WCAT. I'm Kiki Latimer, and I'm your host for the Catholic Bookworm, where we read to learn, but we share with love in order to understand and hopefully be transformed in our lives. I'm very happy to have with me today author Ed Rushman. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Ed's written a really special book called There's So Much to Life, a Whitestone Journal, Take What You Will. So there's so much to life. And indeed, I think your book really brought that out. I loved your book.
Oh, thank you.
There's so much in it, and we're going to
There
discuss
is a
that.
lot in it.
There's a lot in it.
It's a lot in my life.
And really delightful. One of the few books that I felt, certainly at the beginning of your book, you really capture what I call a sense of the numinous, which really was beautiful. So I'm happy to have you here today. So how about you start us off with a quick prayer?
Okay. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Father, please bless this conversation, and especially if there's any good that anyone can get out of it that draws them closer to you, please just draw us all closer to you. Amen.
Amen.
And Father, Son, Spirit.
Thank you. So for our viewers, listeners today who are not familiar with you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am old. I have been married 44 years. There's a story about how we got married and everything in the book, and it's, a little unusual. Basically, I proposed on the first official date. 6 children, 5 that are living. 1 we lost about a year and a half ago. 11 grandchildren.
I got you beat by 3.
Do you really? Oh, well, I may still catch up though, because we have another son. Our eldest son just had his first, and it was a tough experience. I don't know if that's going to happen again. And then the only remaining unmarried child is I think he's going to get married soon. He's found somebody that's just stellar.
You may beat me.
Well, I may. Not that that's my goal, but and then let's see. I've worked in IT for about 45 years. I speak to high school AP computer science classes sometimes, which I just love. And then I've taught confirmation, RCIA, for people that are becoming Catholic or interested in it at least. And I've been a catechist at large. That means I go around talking about the numinous, and to people that have no experience, and which is just a joy. And I go out and ride bikes. I do some physical stuff. My children were reasonably athletic, not in an organized way, but I'm just kind of all over the place. And I've done a lot of things. I actually started out when I was 5 working in entertainment. I was a child actor.
Yeah.
Did that for 7 years with declining rates of success, and finally left retail for 5 years, and then of course the computer stuff. I've literally done every job there is to do in computing, including hardware design, which is kind of rare.
And you're out in California, correct?
In California, in beautiful Southern California, over by Disneyland, and I have let's see, how many is it now? 3? No, now it's 2 children that work at Disneyland, so we get in for free.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, my wife and I went with my wife to Disneyland on her birthday. She said, if you want to get me something really nice, take me to Disneyland. It doesn't cost. And she wanted to spend the whole day with me, which was wonderful. So it was very nice.
I've never been to Disney World or Disneyland. So
yeah, it's an experience. It's very crowded, although it was actually one of the nicer days, and the weather was perfect.
Yeah, well, sounds lovely.
So I don't know what else I could tell somebody. I talk a lot, and I talk to people, and generally just have a good time.
That's great. So this it's really in many sense a memoir of your life. What made you decide to write it in the first place?
So it's a funny thing. I've been trying to figure that out myself. in the first place, I read Carl Jung's Memoirs, Reflections book, and it probably is a little bit like that in the way that it's done. He talks about some experience he had when he was young, and then what that taught him, or what it revealed to him about life or something. And that was one thing, but it's not an imitation of that, and it's far less intellectual than his. Uh, but I've started to write memoirs, just straight memoirs for my children and grandchildren, mainly for the grandchildren, some of whom could be born after I'm gone, because that's the way life is. Some of my children got married at a later age. Uh, so I started that, and then somehow I came up with this, and then we went on a pilgrimage to Rome for the Jubilee year and everything. And it was lovely. It was just a great experience. And the first couple of days, actually, I think it was while we were still in Assisi, I woke up at 2 a.m. and went, oh, now I know what I need to write. And then for the first time in my life, it just flowed. And I actually wrote it very, very quickly. I think I started it in January and pretty much finished everything in August. So
Well, first of all, it's hard to have a bad time in Assisi in Rome and be
it was beautiful.
uninspired.
It was beautiful. Oh, Assisi felt like home.
I loved Assisi, and I loved the little town nearby, Orvieto.
Oh, I haven't been there.
It's just lovely. I have a little tiny lamb that I bought in Orvieto, and I still smile when I think of it. So your book starts us off in a junkyard, and which I absolutely loved, because I am I love junkyards. I love trash heaps on the side of the road. I love dumpster picking. I love regular stores. I love consignment shops. And you mentioned the idea of finding something useful, even beautiful, in unexpected places. Which was one of my favorite lines that the book began with. So I just tapped right into that. Loved it. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's kind of the way my life is. It's just every place that I go, everything I do, I find something that's beautiful, or at least useful. And I've it's funny. I did to get our first house, I did a little bit of consulting jobs, and I found stuff in computer junkyards that I was able to build something out of and then sell it to help make the down payment on the house. It's just every place I go, I see something that's useful. But I think it's also nice because there's people that are trying to convince us of something, or to be, sometimes, preachy. Not like preaching is a bad thing. There's obviously, but sometimes people are a little resistant, and this was written for anybody to get something out of, I hope. And it really was like the conversations that I have, and my brain pretty much is like a junkyard. It's just got a ton of stuff in it, and every now and then I pull something out, and somebody says, "Oh, that's something that I can use." That answers a question I've had. I figure if I write enough and say enough, something useful might come out. But it's the idea is to not have the sense that, oh, I have this great gift, I am this wonderful sage. I'm just, big aspiration was just revelation. It says, write down what you see. And I really like that.
I like that you said you find things that are worthwhile, both in good memories and bad memories. That, you looking back on a day or a week or a year's, that this idea of what has value. I guess you mentioned Oscar Wilde. Some people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. But that you've found value in conversations, ideas, people, experiences. And that sometimes those experiences were good and sometimes they were bad, but you managed to dig some nugget out of it.
Yeah, what's that saying? Be a wonderful example or a terrible warning. And I've had people in my life that were both in situations, and sometimes you learn something about yourself through the negatives. And there's always the thing that, yeah, this bad thing happened, but I'm still here, and I haven't lost hope. And
I
that's something I think
survived
right
it.
now. There was a book called. Oh, now I lost the name of the book. But there was a book that was about being able to thrive, not just survive, but being able to thrive in adversity.
Mm,
And the fact is that the world is a dangerous place, and it's a dangerous place, I think, for a reason. And
mm.
so I just embrace it. This is what God gave us. I just embrace it and go, whatever it is, He's
What
not
is
giving me
it?
anything He shouldn't.
What is it they say? Plants grow better in manure.
And honestly, they did an experiment some time back with mice or something. They created the mouse utopia. You can look this up on a wiki or something. And the mouse utopia was where they created a perfect place for mice that they had all the food they wanted, whatever they had room. If they then they bred like crazy, and then they made more and more room and everything else, and that lasted for a little while, and then the mice started to die off,
Yep.
and eventually the entire population died under perfect conditions.
Mm.
So maybe perfect conditions are not really perfect.
Yeah, I think it's the becoming perfect that really helps us to thrive. Yeah.
Yeah, with people in talking to classes and things like that, I often use the example of a forge. When I was very young, my dad worked in a factory, and he didn't live with us or anything. Our family was a mess. But at his place, you would always hear the California Drop Forge was in LA, and it was across the street or something, and you'd hear this forge going, bam, bam. And they would take just a blob of metal, and I studied manufacturing in school, so I know what it looks like. But there's like this blob, and this giant hammer comes down with tons and tons of force, and then slowly it mashes it repeatedly until it becomes a hammer or some other forged object. There's lots of things that are forged, and that's a lot the way life has been for me.
Mhm.
Is you just have to embrace the being shaped.
You mentioned you share with us what you call like four anchor life stories, and one of the things in that part of the book that you began with, you said there are those who like happiness and those who really don't, which is
Uh,
a quote by C.S. Lewis. And
yes,
it was
yes.
interesting. I was trying to remember whether it was the poet David White or whether it was something I listened to by Jordan Peterson recently, where one or the other of them said something about people who have a what did they call it? Sort of a natural disposition for happiness.
Same idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember being fascinated by that, but I started to realize I think some people do have a natural disposition for some of the virtues. They're natural virtues in some people that aren't in others. And you brought up this idea by C.S. Lewis of, some people just can do happiness more easily than other people. They like happiness.
Sometimes I wonder if it's tied to our will, and that some people, Aquinas said that angels, make the decision, when they're created, and that's it.
Mm.
And we have time. We're blessed with time to stretch eternity out, so we can think about things and be formed. And but maybe sometimes there's just an inner choice that people make, and if somebody really, really doesn't want happiness, sometimes I wonder if that means they don't want God.
Mm. It's certainly something we struggle with daily, I think. My
Yeah.
will or his will.
Yeah, that takes a long time. And sometimes for me, I feel a little bad that it's a little self-serving for me, that maybe I maybe I reverence God because He knows what's best for me, and so it's really just for my own good. Is to just take His direction. It's like having a really great coach, and the coach may push you in ways that you don't want to go, and may tell you to do something a different way, but ultimately, if you have a coach that you trust, then you achieve great things. I just had somebody recently, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but somebody recently, and that I was explaining the way that God works with us, and I said, He's a coach that wants you to win the gold, and
Mm.
He's not going to settle for bronze.
Right.
And then George MacDonald God is easy to please, but hard to satisfy.
Well,
But the truth is that it's for our sake that he's hard to satisfy, because he wants us
Mhm.
to be the best we can be.
Sweet. One of your quotes here I have is, "It's natural and wise to integrate the worthy past into our present."
Mm.
I don't know that it's natural to do that given our fallen nature, but it's certainly wise to do that. And in your book, you've picked out sort of four phases of your life, four experiences and phases, where you've really worked hard to do that, right? Pick out what was worthy and
Yes,
incorporate.
yes. And those four kind of came, I mean, the first three, well, the first two I was sure about, but the pilgrimage itself was one that I put in there.
Yeah.
And then at some point I went, well, wait a minute, my whole life has been a pilgrimage. My whole life has been a journey that was an experience. And of course, that one's not over, but I think it was still good. Uh, but I thought the idea of having four, somebody else, oh, I think I got a little bit of that because I was reading Bishop Barron's The Strangest Way. That's what I read on the plane over to the pilgrimage. And I really loved it. And I felt like he did something like that. He would pick like some themes or something, and so it just, honestly, a lot of, I like to think it's inspiration.
Well, maybe I was going to do them in order, but maybe we will jump to the pilgrimage,
Okay.
since it's come up. Now, you are the only person I know that, like myself, was reading The Agony and the Ecstasy while you were in Rome.
Oh, how fun.
And I usually recommend it to people if I know they're headed to Rome, to Italy, to Florence, oh, you've got to read this, before you go on your way. And there you were reading it. And I was so excited to see that
That's
because
great.
I was reading it probably in the few weeks before we went in, I think it was 2005. And then I actually was finishing reading it while we were traveling in Rome and Florence. And so it was really fun
Yeah.
that you were doing that as well. I loved it. Um, so you went on this pilgrimage to, of course, one of the most wonderful places to take a pilgrimage to. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it was a very unexpected journey. Little Hobbit reference in there. Uh, my wife and I, when her mother died, she left us just a little bit of money, and it was enough to take a trip. And Carol really, really wanted to go someplace, and I've worked so much that she's gone on vacations with her mother before, but not with me because we just didn't have the time. But anyway, so we were thinking about going to Scotland because that's where some of her relatives were from.
Mhm.
And then I went into the office for something at the parish, and they had a little poster thing, on the wall, and it said, "Oh, Father John is going to go on this trip, and he'll be your priest with it, one of them, and he's a good friend of ours." So, oh, you know what? So I went home and I said, there's for the Jubilee year, there's a pilgrimage in Rome, and Father John's going. And do you want to go? And I had big stuff going on at work and everything, but I just said, I'm just taking 2 weeks off. And everything, nothing, by the, just a spoiler, nothing fell apart at work. Everything was fine. Uh, and then Father John came down ill and was not able to go with us. So we knew nobody. But then there was somebody else that was a friend of his that was depending on him. And when he's not going, he paired us up and said, why don't you take care of each other? So we did. Uh, so it was very unexpected. We had been to Rome about 20 something years ago for our wedding anniversary, and it was a very brief trip. But I don't feel this one was really a pilgrimage. I often accidentally, I may do this here, call it a retreat. Because for me, it was like a retreat. And any reservations I had were gone very quickly. And I'd never been to a CC before. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. I think I'll tell you the thing that I say later, but just because I think it's important. I have bit my nails for almost my whole life. I don't think I ever bit my toenails, but the fingernails, yes. And I was on the plane coming back from this pilgrimage and realized my finger felt funny. And I go, hey, I've got fingernails. What on earth? So I think the retreat loosens something. I see, I did it again. The pilgrimage, I think it loosened something, and it happened very quickly. We went into the church that has the Rivotorto, the sacred hovel. It's a building that St. Francis of Assisi lived in with his followers very early on, and they built the church around it. It's marvelous. And there was a bishop from St. Louis who was taught at the seminary, was a theologian, and he told us that. He said, "I'm going to tell you when I say Mass, I give you the homily. It's going to be a theologian's homily, and for that, I'm sorry." And he had no reason to be sorry. It was beautiful, but his homily, and then being in this church, there was something about the church that really hit me, and it wasn't just because of the building being there. It was just the experience was just overwhelming, and it was so beautiful. um and the emotions were really, really strong,
Mm.
and it was such an experience.
It's amazing when it all comes together like that, you know.
Yeah, and it's like being bombarded, but it's being bombarded with beauty. And one of the things I thought of at the time was that, I wonder if people ask themselves if they've ever wept at beauty. I get the feeling sometimes, people cry when they're sad. But you know what?
Mm.
It makes you wonder. I wonder how many people really get to weep because something is so beautiful.
I have a dear friend, Professor Stephen Schwartz, and when he cannot listen to the music of Johann Sebastian Bach without weeping. I mean,
Yeah.
that's always actually been his primary pathway to God is the beauty of music, primarily Bach, but also Mozart and Beethoven.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it was philosopher Peter Kreeft who said Bach, therefore God. So, which I love. The shortest argument for God is the beauty of that kind of music. But
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly sense that when I stand in front of the Pietà in St. Peter's.
Hmm.
I mean, I could just stand, or David in Florence. It's just the beauty of art is such a stunning pathway to God. It just really does pull us in, you know.
Yeah. I read, and I picked this, I don't remember where I picked this up. I think maybe from Thomas Merton, but T.S. Eliot in his little poem Little Gidding says, to kneel where in this place where prayer has been valid. And that really hit me remembering that when I was at that church. And
Mm.
that was on the first full day there.
Here to kneel.
Yes, yes, yes. Not to give report, you're not here to analyze it, you're not to just give yourself to it. Giving yourself to an experience can be difficult for people.
Mary Oliver also has a beautiful poem. I think it's The Grasshopper, where she starts, I don't know what a prayer is, but I know how to kneel. And
Ooh,
it's a beautiful poem. I don't know what prayer is, she says, but
yeah.
I know how to kneel. And I'd never connected that with T.S. Eliot, but I'm sure she was very familiar with T.S. Eliot. Um,
But also the way that we do what we can do. There's times that sometimes it's hard to pray. I feel embarrassed saying that in a way, and it seems strange to me, but it is the reality. And sometimes you start by kneeling, or you start with the Lord's Prayer, or you just do some physical thing that puts you in that disposition, and the next thing you know,
but
it's all working.
I mean, at the death of Lazarus, we don't see Jesus prayed, we see Jesus wept. He just wept. And of course, if you've seen that scene in The Chosen,
Uh-huh.
he kneels and weeps, but it is its own prayer, you know.
Yeah, prayer is not just words. It's that's and that there have been times I remember being at mass. I think it was after the trip, the Rome trip. And there are times at mass that there's just no words.
Mm.
and you're just caught up in the moment. And and hopefully that doesn't happen to me right now. But
Mm. You talked about how in Rome you really came to understand the sense that healing, whatever kind of healing we may need, healing takes time,
Mhm.
um, and sometimes discomfort and sometimes pain.
Yeah, and I never really thought as much about the indulgences as a kind of healing before. That was something that was very strong when I went to Rome. Because of going through the doors, there's a plenary indulgence. There were a lot of spiritual benefits to that were very tangible. One of them was that I really looked up what those are and saw that, well, there's supposed to be a complete renunciation of all attachment to sin. And it's like, oh,
Good luck with
yeah,
that.
it was just exactly what I was thinking. But at the same time, I went, but if that's what it takes, then I need to work hard for that. And I feel that I've been spiritually lazy through a lot of my life, maybe my whole life. And God has really had to work hard on me. And if He had to drag me to Rome to get me to learn that lesson, then praise God. That's what He did. Uh, but yeah, I never really thought of it before as much as a healing, that through doing an action or putting oneself in a situation, that it reshapes us for the better, and heals the damage we've done to ourselves. And I've done a lot of damage, especially when I was younger, to myself. And that
Mm.
needs to be healed. It develops bad habits even, and those bad habits need to be eradicated by something. And sometimes it takes a really good, strong massage that doesn't actually feel that enjoyable at the time.
Right. Squeeze it out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It's awful. Man, that really hurts. And it's like, oh, but now I feel really good.
Right. Your first experience that you shared with us was your search experience, which I assume search is similar to like Curcio.
It actually is. It relates directly. People from Curcio were involved in starting Search, and I'm not the big authority on Search. I don't know. I just know my experience. But that's
Yeah.
what I heard. Yes, is that it's very related to Curcio and very similar.
Mhm. And that's where you talk quite a bit about habits, our habits, how powerful they are. And you refer particularly to our bad ones, which I really liked because, when I was a kid, I've brought this up in other interviews. When I was a kid, people used to tell me if you do something for 30 days, if you do something for a month, it becomes a habit, like a
Yes.
lifetime habit. And my experience is that that's only true for bad habits. If you do something actually for about 3 days that's
Ah,
bad, it will become a habit forever until you fight against it. But I've found in my life that I could do a good habit for a month, 2 months, 6 months, and then stop doing it for one day and it's gone. It's just gone.
yeah.
About a week later, I go, oh, I stopped doing that. Or 6 months later, I realize, oh, I had that good habit and I was doing it for quite a long time. And then somehow it just dissipated. So I think, we're always leaning towards our fallen nature.
Destruction is always easier than construction.
And so, but our bad habits, man, if I pick up a bad habit, man, it will just stick to me like glue. And
Yeah.
it will not go
Yeah.
anywhere until I like really fight to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So I was really interested that, this reflection that you had on our habits.
I
Um,
have more experience with bad habits than good ones, unfortunately. Yeah.
oh,
But
goodness.
but yeah, I really had a lot of problems at the time. I was really a mess when I made that search retreat. And I you probably read in there, that I went to the doctor because I was so sick, and the doctor asked me, which is, crazy, that he said, do you have any kind of religion? And I said, well, yeah, but I'm not following it. And he said, well, you better start following it because you're not going to last long. And what's funny is I did go back and try, because I didn't keep a record of things. I went back, not that many months after, and tried to find who it was that I went to, because I didn't keep receipts or anything. I just pay and do my thing. And I couldn't find him. And I think about that scripture, that some have entertained angels unawares.
Nowheres, yeah.
I'm
I
not
had a
saying it's
good
something mystical, but you never know.
I had a good friend years ago, and her life was really in a difficult mess at the time. And then her back went out really
Mm,
badly, as in, could not, barely crawl around the house. And a friend, she literally crawled out to the car, and they took her to a doctor. And he examined her head to toe kind of thing. And he said, yeah, your back's really, really out, but there's nothing wrong with you except your life.
wow.
You need
Yeah.
to change your life. Um, you know, he said, he said, I can do some adjustments and some massage and, get you some meds. But he said, you need to change your life, which she eventually did, but it was
Yeah.
fascinating, you
There's
know.
so many stories of people that went through some desert period or some difficult period, often illness. And it kind of just, it was a little bit of a whack of cold water in the face. It's a little thing that just makes us break out of that habit, breaking
Mhm.
out of that routine so
Yeah.
that and I've had some injuries, from sports and stuff that, it just caused me to have to sit more. Well, then I listened to audiobooks or I watched some instructional things, on history. I covered a lot of history because of that. And it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I
Well,
wouldn't
I
have done
mean,
that maybe otherwise.
certainly the pandemic did that for many of us.
Oh, it was such an
And we hear
opportunity.
stories, and some people did nothing, I know, during the pandemic, but, bitch and moan. But some people really got creative during the pandemic, and after a
Oh,
certain
yeah.
period of time, realized that it was an opportunity. I spent the first month really whining and literally crying because I'd lost my job at the seminary and I was
Oh,
home and my husband was home. We were ready to kill each other. And, and then, I wound up writing a book during that time. I was teaching homiletics and
that's great.
had the opportunity to write the book. And writing the book was far more important. But yeah, sometimes we really have to be like pushed into silence or pushed into a retreat or a situation where we're really forced to reflect on things, and the pandemic did that for many of us, uh,
Yeah.
whether we
Children
liked
won't
it or
eat.
not.
Well, that's the thing. Children won't eat what's good for them if we don't force them. I mean, and you have to balance that and be loving
Right.
and everything else. But, a lot of the things that are good for us, we're not attracted to them.
Right, right. Yeah,
Back
yeah.
to the human condition.
Cod liver oil.
I
So
don't know
your
if that's really good or not, but yeah, I do.
so your search experience was when you were younger,
Hmm.
right?
23.
23. Your later experience, your walk in the desert, you were quite a bit older, 20
Yeah,
years
that was,
later.
more,
30?
probably 30, probably 30.
Okay. So you were,
Yeah,
yeah. So
something like that.
this was, I was jealous the whole time you were on this. So it was the Utah-Arizona border, the Paria Canyon, is it? The
I'm
Paria?
not too sure on the pronunciation. I think it's you know what? I know it's not pariah because I always want to say pariah, but that's wrong, and it's not paria, which is not Spanish language. It's not
Okay.
Latin. But yes, it's Paria anyway for anybody who wants to look it up. It's about a 40-mile trek in a slot canyon that goes zigzaggy really in a big way. Uh, and I was looking for something for the family. I was looking for some kind of hike we could do together and everything. And then I found this, and then it was like the book. It was like writing the book. It was this call that you need to go do this.
Mm,
And my wife would not be happy if I did it by myself. Uh, and I had never done anything like this. I'd never gone out in the wilderness and just gone for days
mm,
without anybody else alone. I didn't really do any camping until we got married, and then we did it because we wanted the children to have that experience and all that. But so I just put a thing on Craigslist and said, I want to go hike this canyon. And does anybody else have some good experience with doing backcountry type stuff? And two graduate assistants, teaching assistants, or whatever at UCI responded, And so I went down there and met with them and everything, and we worked it all out. And my contribution would be I would drive up there, buy whatever food, that kind of, because they're giving me a gift by being experts on it, and for safety and stuff. That made a lot of sense. So I'm driving up there, and I've made on my Whitestone Journal channel, which is on YouTube. I've got 100 videos out there, and so I sometimes made them driving, because when I'm driving, I often pray, and I thought, well, I'll turn it into a video. So I'm driving up there, and then in the course of, I was talking about the homily from Sunday morning, because I did it on a Sunday, and I go, oh, they're not going to show up.
The angels have left you.
The Lord wants me, and it was really clear. I want it to just be us. And I'm getting a little chill just, from thinking about it, because it was awesome. And it wasn't scary, even though I was going to go do this thing by myself and I could die, because I got close once. But I still thought, no, well, but I've made these arrangements, and let's go let it play out. So I go up there, and I don't hear from them. I camped. That was the first time I ever actually camped by myself at that late age in my life, where I was the only person. I stayed in a campground, a staging place, and I get out there and I pitch my tent and I do everything. Next morning, I'm texting them, nothing. And then finally, I hear from them, and they said, oh, yeah, we went on a hike yesterday, and we blew our feet out. We're just destroyed. It was a very difficult hike. So I said, well, why don't you guys come over and let's meet, because they were close by. I said, why don't you meet, and we'll see, maybe we can still do this. Maybe you'll feel better. And they got out of their car, and they're walking really strangely.
Not happening.
Oh, it's not happening. And so I said, well, and they were so nice, and they were so apologetic. And I said, how about, would you be willing to drive me up to the start? It's a through hike, so you start at one point, end at another. It's not a loop, so that presents a problem. So I was parked down at the end of it, and they drove me up, and they told me later they were really nervous about it, because they're thinking, are we the last people to see this guy alive?
This guy, right. So you're really embarking on this silent retreat.
Very much.
Silent pilgrimage. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just walked into the canyon, and and did 40 miles. I saw one family go through, 4 people. And out of the whole thing, that was the only time I ever saw a human being. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see much in animals either, for that matter. And and then I just did what was natural. But once I found they weren't going, I was committed, and I said, okay, Lord, this is what you want. This is just us. What would you have me do?
And how was the silence? Because that was your first time really in that kind of length of silence, right?
Not in a sense, because when I drive and stuff, I don't always have something going. A lot of the time when I would drive and I loved listening to Thomas Merton's talks to novices. I wish there were more of them. They weren't all perfect, but some were excellent. But when I'll be listening to that, or I'll listen to music, there's a point where I'll turn it off and just have silence, so I can meditate on whatever it made me think of. And this was like that. But I felt called to do the Jesus prayer over and over again. And I actually managed to go 4 days, mostly just praying, Lord Jesus, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus, have mercy, over and over again. It's a very different experience. That's not usually the way I pray. I'm not big on repetition, but here it was what I was supposed to do. So, God was my spiritual director.
Nice. You said the journey gave me what I needed, but you have no idea what exactly. You knew it was a gift, that whatever came was a gift. Yeah.
I think there's something to, I don't recommend it to anybody, because everybody has to do what makes sense to them. Mm-hmm. You can't force God's hand. I can't go back there and go, encore, Lord, I want the same experience, because that isn't the way life works. But it was what I needed, and I just went with it. But it's very hard to define exactly what it was. But I think that being in a position of peril, where it's dangerous, and where there's deprivation, sensory deprivation. There's the quiet. The phone doesn't work, for picking up calls or anything. And I didn't take a satellite phone deliberately uh, because I just wanted to be in God's hands.
Mhm.
And I thought I had other people there that were going to have one. Uh, but that throwing yourself into God's arms and just saying, "Take me, whatever your will is. If I'm destined to die here, I'm okay with that. My life is yours. Take it or give it back to me, whatever you want to do." And that leaves a person
Just
changed.
being open to where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. Yeah.
Without any and with it, really, I had no expectations. I wasn't expecting it to be the Hilton. I did not expect to be as grubby as I was when I came out of it. I'll tell you that.
You talk about life as an adventure rather than a journey. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I hadn't thought about it too much until there was something that made me do it, and I looked up adventure, and adventure contains an element of risk. A journey, well, you have the expectation of journey. I will get to my destination. You're not looking for an adventure, and you can't help but think of Bilbo Baggins.
Right.
Adventure. Oh, nasty things.
Yes,
Make you late for dinner.
needed my pipe and my slippers.
Yeah, yeah. And but he gets dragged out into something, and maybe my desert trip was just a tiny miniature version of that unexpected journey that Bilbo took.
Mm.
There
I
were no
think that
dragons.
being open to unexpected gifts you talk about later in the book, just being just open to it.
It's
In my ethics class, we used to talk about what we called the upright cup. And that's the idea that if a cup is upright and it rains, it'll catch the rain
oh
that
yeah,
comes into it. But if it's on its side, this way, it still rains, the gifts are still coming down, but you don't catch any of them. And
that's right.
and that it's really the virtues that help us be an upright cup, and an attitude of gratitude
Uh-huh.
helps us to be open when those gifts come our way. I mean, we all know cranky people, crabby people who'll say, "Oh, nothing good ever happens to me," and you're like, "Nah, no, you just haven't been an upright cup,
Yeah, yeah.
because the good stuff is there. It's there." And your book really talks about being just open to the adventure. Which even Bilbo was, even though he didn't know it.
In the end, he ran. Signed the contract and ran.
That's right.
You know, and I think for me, it's just I see life as having opportunities everywhere. Where it's kind of it's that cliche and kind of I don't like it that much in some ways, but there are no problems, there are only opportunities. And at work, because I do a lot of really difficult stuff with teams and everything, sometimes 80 people, and we're trying to make something happen. And I kind of play with it. I tell them, you remember, there's no problems, there's only opportunities. And I kind of wink, but it's also true. And I think the idea is not to diminish people's suffering and say, oh, you don't really have a problem, you have an opportunity. Well, that's a little facile, that's a little glib. But there's truth in it, and in everything there's an opportunity. And even if it's something negative, there's the opportunity to grow from it at the very least, or to learn something new. And so when something comes along, I grab it. There was a movie that I don't necessarily recommend, but it was Jim Carrey's Yes Man. And he just said, I'm going to just say yes to everything. And it's kind of grubby. It's not, but it was a change for him to start saying yes, that character. And that probably describes my life in a lot of ways. A lot of my prayer with God is just do with me what you will. Let it be done unto me according to your word.
Yeah. A big chunk of your book, speaking of movies, is recommending some movies to us, which I loved. But you don't have Railway Man in there. Have you seen Railway Man?
No, no.
That's like one of my favorite movies, and I use it quite a bit in my ethics class with students. So you've got to watch Railway Man.
Oh,
And Blue Jay is another favorite.
well, it's
So
good this is recorded so I'll
yeah.
make sure and get that. Oh,
Railway
that's great.
Man with
I haven't heard of either one of those.
Railway Man is Colin Firth, believe it or not, is the main actor.
Oh, and he's really
And
good.
and he's wonderful. And I don't know why the movie, well, I do know why the movie got no attention. It's just a really good movie and, a deeply good movie, which, Hollywood doesn't really like, I think. And it's a true story. And you'll have to watch it and let me know what you think of it.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm always grateful for I've picked up so many oddball movies that nobody else is even talking about and
But
because
now
of
I have
some of the
your
things.
list of movies, which what made you decide to put movies in there? Tell me about the importance of movies,
I
because I
wanted the
love film.
I
So,
wanted the book to be as much like the conversations I have with people as possible. And in my conversations with people, I often bring up movies, and I will reference things. If you saw this, oh yeah, I saw that. Well, you know how this happened? It's it's really mythology. All
mm,
these movies I like. I don't know if I mentioned. Well, I haven't mentioned it on here. I didn't grow up Catholic, but when I was really young, I had a real love for myth, and those movies, some of them really are mythic. So those are the
mm,
ones that I tended to pick. Something
mm,
that was conveying a truth, like Tolkien says that a myth is the best way to convey truth in that sense. Uh, and so I thought, this is how I talk to people. I tell them about some movie, and I use that. I use it when I teach classes. Yeah, I teaching confirmation, and I'm giving talks to parents now at the parish. And so I will sometimes refer to a movie, and if they actually know what the movie is, great. And if they don't, they say, well, you should go watch it.
you should go watch.
And there's some
Yeah.
songs in there too. It's just things that moved me or changed me or that put something into a visual form that I needed to understand in a way that God taught me.
Mm. I think it's amazing how books, obviously, films, and music, songs can really, really speak to us, and how they speak to us at different times in different ways.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Mm.
Yes. Moody Blues, the song Question, I mentioned it in there. And there was a line in there that says, I'm looking for someone to change my life. And I
Mhm.
was very deeply romantic when I was young. I probably still am in some way, in the fuller sense of romantic as well. And when I was young, it was, wanting somebody to love, wanting to love, have somebody, a partner, a wife. I didn't even know anything about marriage when I was young. And but after I made that search, then when I heard that line, it was deeply moving because I was looking for someone to change my life. I just didn't know what that meant. And it's like, and now it's looking at it from the other side. I met someone who changed my life.
Mm.
And now, oh, isn't that cool?
It's amazing. I had a friend once who she'd just gotten Joan Baez's album Diamonds and Rust.
Oh,
She
it's a
said, "Oh,
great
you've
album.
got to hear this. You've got to hear this." And I was 19 at the time, and she played the song for me like 20 times, and I was like, "Oh, it's nice, you know." And it was making her weep, but
Uh-huh.
and then about 3 months later, I had moved away. I'd gotten married and moved away for the first time, and I was horribly homesick. And one afternoon, I thought, "Oh, let me play that album that Sandy gave me." And Diamonds and Rust came on, and I just wailed,
Yeah. Oh my
because
goodness, yes.
now with the homesickness, my heart was open. And I could get it. So it always fascinates me how different times in our lives we can get it. We can get the message. It's there all along. The problem isn't in the message, it's in us. Um, you know,
Well, they have that saying that says that when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And
right.
sometimes the teacher is a song. When I left one of the places that I worked at with a good sized team, and we had a kind of a nice relationship, a nice bond that I don't know. There was something interesting in the way that we interacted together. And so when I left, I posted on their chat, Joan Baez, "Forever Young,"
Mhm.
because it's a blessing. It starts off with "May God keep you," that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And
Yeah.
it's in a secular environment, but I learned in there what I could get away with and what I couldn't. And you
Right.
kind of looked at what everybody does.
Exactly.
And but
Exactly.
yeah, no, that was and Diamonds and Rust was a great song because I had a long-term relationship. It was off and on when I was young before I made the search. And the search ended that relationship.
Mhm.
After that, I was done. I was able to say, if what you're offering me is Diamonds and Rust, I've already paid, baby. I don't need to go through this again.
It's
I am,
interesting.
yeah, it's I
Mhm.
when you're free, you're free.
Yeah. So the last sort of anchor experience that you bring us through is really your family life throughout the years. And you weave that for us. The meeting, your childhood, the meeting of your wife, your family
Yeah.
life with her, has been your anchor story in that sense.
That's been the it's been the most transformative experience of my life from the volume of it, from the amount of change. You know, you have those things that are like a thunderclap, and you're changed, and you're like, oh, now I get it, you know, or something. But then there's some things that just work on you over a very long time.
Mhm.
And you know, 44 years of marriage, 45 years of knowing her, it's and there's a lot to be said for being in a good community, and the family is the domestic church.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I often say, you know, when we were growing up, meaning when my children and I were growing up, because we were all growing up together.
Right.
And I learned so much from having to be there for them, having to provide, and having to deal with whatever I had to deal with to make sure that the bills were paid, but
Mhm.
also trying to expose them to a lot of things. I think I'm good at that because I'm so curious. So I had stuff around. I mean, you know, I told a bunch of stories about getting an old piano and fixing it up. And I wanted all the children to have had their hands on a keyboard and learn the basics of the scales and the keys. And then they would take it from there. I just give them little introductions to things and give them a broad experience and then let them pick, see, take what you will. You know, let them just pick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
One of the things in that section of the book you talk about is that, and I love this because my professor Stephen Schwartz would say, people are a mixed bag. And you talked about people that had serious faults, but yet could be reliable in other ways. And I think you said you really, in some sense, learned that from your mother. Treat
Yes.
everyone with respect, but then this idea of serious faults mixed with reliability. Um, you mentioned Father Andrew, was it Wooten's?
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yes. That's a crazy story.
I love that. He said, I'm a fornicator, not a heretic. That's a great line. I got to remember that one. That's like a Flannery O'Connor line.
It's very, oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was reminded, I thought of the movie, speaking of movies, Schindler's List.
Uh huh.
And, Schindler was a man who was obviously amazing during the war, and he saved just thousands of people's lives, and they were deeply grateful to him. But yet his wife had nothing good to say about the man. He was
Yeah.
kind of a womanizer and a jerk when it came to marriage, but yet he was a hero during the war. And that the movie really brought that out. What an amazing individual he was, sort of under pressure. The best in him came out, and then from what I've read, he just went back to his other ways after the war. But this idea of people being sort of a mixture, that we're all a mixture of, things that we're good at, our sins and our virtues. Um,
Well, and I think for me, it was to not let myself miss the good because of the bad. Because the whole world has all kinds of problems in it. And I've got to be able to see the good. And it doesn't mean that the good justifies the bad. Because, you know, we can't say, oh, you know, well, this isn't bad because they did this good thing or they compensated for it. No, it's just it's all there. It is that mixed bag.
mm,
Uh, and I don't know. I've learned so much from some people that were just so awful. I mean, they're swearing. They're just things I just don't even want to repeat. And yet I would see them snap, and they would just be, oh, on this thing, you need to be very careful how you do this. This is really the right way. We have to be very careful to be ethical here.
Mhm. There's
And
a beautiful quote in your book, which I'll read here. It says, "The more I understand a person, the more I love them. Not approve or agree, but have a kind of affection, appreciation, and a desire for their good, even if they are bad." It's a beautiful
yeah,
quote. The more I understand a person. And again, I love that you said it's not that I agree with them or
hmm
approve of everything that this person does, but the more that we understand people, we can love them, will the good. Yeah.
well, and God knows everyone perfectly and also loves perfectly. So, it kind of goes together.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Your last word in your book is silence. You tap into mystery and silence. You bring us into mystery in the very beginnings of your book, and you return to the concepts of mystery and silence at the end of your book.
Thank you for noticing, because that's my favorite part in the whole book. I went through and wrote about both Dante and Thomas Aquinas a little bit, and some of the things that I thought of, and this really came from the experience in Rome. Uh, I actually memorized a little tiny bit of the end of Dante's Paradiso, uh, which I am told I don't do too badly in Italian. I'm very happy with that. I met a priest from Italy, and it was like, "Can I try this on you?" And he goes, "Sure." And I said, "Oh yeah, you said that right." It's like, yeah, I was so happy.
Can we hear it? Can we hear it?
Oh my goodness, I'm afraid I'll stumble over it. Legato con amore, in un volume, ciò che per l'universo si squaderna. And the
Wow.
idea is that when he looked into the Trinity, that he saw bound up in one volume, in one book, that which through the universe and leaves is scattered. That all of everything, and I especially like that one because of the idea that God wrote two books, which you'll find in multiple writers. Uh, there's the Bible, of course, but also there's all of creation as a book.
Mhm.
And when we read that, that tells us about God too. What Aquinas, somebody asked Aquinas, why is there, or he asked himself maybe, why are there so many different kinds of animals and flora and fauna and everything? And he says, God's got a lot to say about himself. If he wants us to know about him, he's just given us all. But yeah, sorry, I'll go off on all kinds of tangents with that. But the silence thing, I wrote that ending well ahead of finishing the book,
Mhm.
because when I looked at Aquinas, where he said, everything after what I've experienced, late in his life, everything I've written is straw.
The guy who wrote the Summa, right?
Yeah, and didn't finish. He left a little bit off, I believe. Um,
Did.
but the idea, for both he and for Dante, they had this experience of God, different experiences that were ecstatic. I mean, even if they didn't make a big deal out of it themselves, didn't go into a lot of detail. How could they? When somebody gives me a really, really detailed picture, I kind of feel like, well, but sometimes it goes beyond words and you struggle. Uh, and the idea that in both cases, they had this experience, they'd written all this, they had this experience, and then they knew there was nothing left to say. And then they died shortly afterward. And I found an intense beauty in that. It's just, it reminds me it is finished.
Into
You know,
silence, into
yeah,
great silence after that. Another
yeah,
good movie, Into Great
and
Silence.
integrate silence. What? Okay,
Have you ever
this is.
seen?
I'll remember this.
Into Great Silence was a movie that came out, I'm thinking about 20 years ago. And there's a monastery, I believe in France, but don't quote me on this. And there was a filmmaker who wrote to them and said, "I'd like to come and film your monastery."
Oh, I've heard of
And
this.
the guy said, the abbot said, well, we're making a few changes. I don't want you to film until we make a few changes. And so just wait, And then so the film guy waited, and 20 years later, I believe he got a letter saying, "We're ready for you to come now," which is so Catholic.
I've heard of this someplace. I did hear of this, not in
And
any detail.
it's the filming of a year at this monastery, and there's no speaking in it. There's just the sounds of the rain and the shuffling, and it's beautiful. And what was really funny is my husband and I, we sort of knew about it, and we went to see it. We were in Washington, D.C. at the time, and it was a small theater. And I'd say it was a matinee, and we went in, and there was probably about maybe 60 people in the theater. It was a new film, and and it's 3 hours long, and
Oh,
and it's really like going on a retreat or a pilgrimage. Well, an hour, about 45 minutes into the film, a third of the people left. And another half an hour into the film, or so, an hour in, the other third left. And 2 hours in, everyone else left. And by the end, it was really a retreat, there were about 5 people left in the theater, enjoying this 3 hours of silence and visual beauty.
wow.
And it's just magnificent. But you really have to be prepared that you're not watching a film, you're having a 3 hour retreat. And you've got to have all your stuff ready and go to the
Yeah.
bathroom beforehand, and be prepared, and maybe take an intermission. But it's a beautiful film. You enjoy
Wow.
silence. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's great. That's great.
I just want to mention you have I'd never heard a poem by John Dryden in a
Hmm.
book from All for Love from 1677. I'm not familiar with him, but I loved it. It was errors like straws upon the surface flow. He who would search for pearls must dive below.
Yes,
That's
yes.
beautiful. He who would search for pearls must dive below. I
Go
felt
deep.
like your book helped us do that.
Oh, thank you. Dryden was a recent discovery for me. I just in the last year or something, I ran across that quote or some other one that got me to him. And then I always, if I find somebody new, I go online, I go, like with AI, give me 10, 20 quotes by this person. And then I
Mm.
just search through and it's the junkyard. I'm just looking through. I got to find stuff.
Well, that's a real gem. Yeah. In fact, I put it up on my Facebook page for people and sent it out to
Oh,
everyone
good, good.
yesterday. Yeah, it's beautiful. There's so much in your book. There's just so much. It's really wonderful.
There's
And
so much to life.
yes, there's so much to life. And
Yeah. I got ribbed a little
well,
bit for the title because they said the title's too bland. It's like, well, I don't know what else to put there.
there's so much to life. Is there anything you'd like to mention? I mean, we've meandered all over the place, that's really important to you that you'd like to mention in this interview?
You know, I think it's just mostly I'm so blessed to have had so many experiences, and I think that I'm hungry and curious, and that's made my life really interesting. And I just thought that if I just wrote a bunch of stuff down, even though it's a little scattered, it could use. Hopefully, I will learn to write better. But I'm a little apologetic that I know that it needs that it scatters all over. But that's the way that I am, and I'm giving myself to people and saying, take whatever you can get. And I pray that somebody finds something in there that maybe helps them a little bit. You know, we only need to do a little bit to help people. There's
I
so
think it's
many
a
ways.
beautiful book. I think it's a
Thank
beautiful
you.
book. I think you're a beautiful writer. And
Oh, thank you.
so where can people get it? It's not quite published yet, right? It's on its
It's
way out
so
here.
it's out there where they can purchase it on Kindle now if they want to take a chance. But then it'll eventually get released there, hopefully in the next few weeks on Kindle, and it'll be soft color cover, hardcover on Amazon, and then the Audible book will go out. And I am going to narrate that myself because I think that for memoirs, I like it when the person that's had the experience actually reads it. And I'm a good reader. I've been a lector and stuff, and people generally say I'm clear and easy to understand when I speak. So I,
Great,
I don't
great.
tend to mumble.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's so much to life. A white stone journal, take what you will.
And it's cheap. When they talked to him about it, I said, don't price it high. Make it low so anybody can have it. So it is cheap.
Beautiful work. And you're working on something else you mentioned?
I have a list of about 10 things. And I am partly, I talk to my wife and I say, Carol, here's the list. What are these appeals to you? And then those are the ones I look at first. But strangely enough, the next one it looks like is going to be on love. I've got extensive notes on it already. I have a lot of notes I've accumulated over 30 years. But this one's going to be very, very different. Trying to, well, there's no way to tiptoe around this. It's an attempt to see if I can bring love to politics
Wow.
and have people look at the common good, not as the common good, but as love. And even hoping that people from different traditions, different backgrounds, if there's some way to get them to love more, with less self-interest and more loving unconditionally. And I feel like I've got an approach for this, and we'll see if it works out.
So maybe we'll see you back here.
I hope so. I hope so. It's just such a lovely time talking with you. This has been a real joy.
Been delightful. You want to end us with a prayer, Ed?
You bet. Thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you, Father, for this experience and for Kiki, and please bless all those that hear it and see it. And just help us to see the opportunities and to just love the life that you've given us. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.